The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the little person dressed up in a Holiday Express outfit that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yep, so...
Yep.
We're back after our big episode 100 with the equally classy The Creeps from Full Moon Features.
It just keeps getting better. All right, so I'm a little bit of a full Moon fan, so this excited me. Also, fan of Phil Fondacaro. He can do no wrong, I don't think. I haven't checked on any controversies he was involved in, and hopefully none, but, you know.
Yeah, it was not, it was nice that they got, all the other monsters were kind of just like, silent and in suits, but it was nice that they got at least Dracula to be like a charismatic person to kind of be the center of attention.
Which he does very well. Like, honestly, it's like, okay, this is a good Dracula.
Yeah, it really is.
But of course, Frankenstein just goes, meh, and so does the Mummy. And the only thing with the werewolf is a pitch change of grrr.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty rough. But so let's get this started.
Okay, yeah. So we start, and the credits are rolling over some kind of object that has glowing stars on it. I don't know what this thing is.
It is it's got to be like a kid's like mobile from 1996 or 7.
Yeah, that was what it looked like to me. It was just some kind of kid's toy, but I don't know why it's there. It doesn't make sense in the story.
No, none whatsoever.
But you can see it's like on the ground, and in the background you can see that like it's a library.
Right. And by the way, this is a solid minute 30 of credits. So it's almost excruciating.
And this movie is not very long. Like they probably made long credits to make it count as a feature-length film.
Oh yeah, had to. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
because it's like what, $1.06 by itself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Full Moon's deal. Is they love to make a short movie.
It's cheap, short, and a little punchy.
I feel like especially like now that they have their own streaming service, if you get on there, a lot of the movies are less than an hour because now they don't have any kind of obligation to, meet any kind of theater's standards of what a movie has to be.
No, they're like their own little TV shows now, right?
Yeah.
Which that's fun.
Yeah. They're still doing what they've always done, and it's entertaining.
Oh, by the way, don't expect any class. There's none there. It's probably going to be some off-putting jokes every once in a while, but they've been better about that recently, mostly, kind of.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah. And gratuitous TNA, and now more recently pot. Or more obvious references to.
Yeah, they've definitely become like the weed humor company.
Yeah. National Lampoon's tried that a little bit in the 90s. It didn't work out for him, but Full Moon was like, this is our audience, baby. We got this.
But this one, it's like in the classic era, like when they were doing like, the Puppet Master movies and stuff. It's a little bit more classy than some of their stuff. There's a little bit of TNA, but less than you're used to with them. And there's not a lot of like content warnings that I would give for this for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, we get in some sketchy areas, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
And like even, like I had not seen this before this week, but like, if you tell me like, okay, we're going to watch a full moon feature that stars a bunch of little people.
Oh yeah, it's going to be awful.
I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of really dicey humor about that, but there's really not.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, nobody uses any slurs for little people, which even, when this had come out, some of those words weren't even considered slurs by the general public, but like nobody mocks them for being little. Like, it's surprising.
I mean, kind of, but it's also like anything you would say to just a monster in general that's trying to get you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things there, but for the most part, like this is respectful, as respectful as it gets for the most part.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Which you don't expect that from Full Moon.
No, not at all.
I mean, maybe if you're watching like, I guess Puppet Master or like Subspecies, but some of their other stuff, no. Evil toys or demonic toys or anything like that, no. There's going to be gross humor out of that.
Oh yeah,
but apparently not. All right, so we start off with a librarian. I believe her name is Miss Quarles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
speaking to a quote unquote Mr. Jameson about some rare books, and she's trying to get him to sign all kinds of authorization forms from the university.
Yeah, they've got like a rare book collection, where everything's like under lock and key and you have to put on special gloves and all that. But there's also just like a lot of red tape to even get permission to do that. And he shows his ID, he fills out all this paperwork. You can tell he's just real twitchy and nervous. Like he's something's off about this guy.
Yeah, it's maybe not on the up and up, or the guy's just really nervous all the time.
Right.
Who knows?
But finally, he's given permission. He goes and sits at this table. The librarian brings out like this steel box and sets the manuscript in front of him and helps him put on gloves and a mask. And the book he's looking at is the Shelley manuscript.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun. This is an original, baby.
Yeah. And so, she's like, all right, you got to keep the gloves and mask on and I'll leave you to it. And she heads out. And as soon as she leaves the room, he immediately takes off the mask and digs through, like he's got a messenger bag, and he's got an exact copy of the manuscript.
I wouldn't say exact copy. It's pretty noticeably just a forgery.
Yeah. It's vaguely, it's similar enough, like at first.
The costume department took extra care on the original, and they just kind of, did some wiping of some, what's it called, stain on the front of this one, and it kind of got everywhere. So it's like, this is visual, we know which one we're shooting with and which one's the extra.
Mm-hmm. So obviously his plan is to swap them out and steal the real one.
Right.
And then we cut to downstairs where Quarles is getting kind of chewed out by her boss for
Miss Christina.
Yeah. And she's like, the whole point of having the rare books is that we don't want anyone to ever see them.
Right. And by the way, all right, so here's kind of where some homophobia, I don't know if it's necessarily actual homophobia, but it is definitely an archetype of kind of the predatory lesbian, because Miss Christina's obviously flirting with Quarles, and she's like, hey, maybe we could go to this book reading together.
Yeah, and Quarles is, she's not interested, but she's also really intimidated by her boss. So she declines, but she's kind of nervous about it.
With Miss Christina, honestly, I would expect her to be wearing rubber boots and having a riding crop. Okay.
Yeah, she's intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of she's definitely some of the comic relief in this, the whole idea that we're preserving these books, which is a good thing, but we don't want anyone to ever look at or touch them, which kind of defeats the purpose. These books need to be seen to, have any reason to still exist. But her, right. I think her slogan is minimum handling equals maximum preservation.
Yes, I was going to ask you, what's our motto, Anthony?
Yeah. Yes. And so then the man comes back down with he's got the metal case that the manuscript is in.
Oh, this sets her the fuck off. Christina's like, oh, hell no. You're not supposed to be handling that. That's supposed to be handled by the librarian. And she gives it back to Miss Quarles, and she's like, hey, this is a reason to refuse him ever from touching these books again.
Yeah, put this on his permanent record.
Yeah.
So then we see like a little later, Quarles goes up to like look at the manuscript herself. She's kind of feeling like, she's curious. Like, and I think like the whole kind of conversation about minimum handling kind of got to her, and she's just like, I want to see this manuscript. I'm curious.
Yeah.
But when she does, it's the fake, and he didn't even bother anything beyond making the cover try to kind of look right. It's just a blank book.
Photocopy.
Yeah. Yeah, so when she starts flipping through the pages and sees they're all blank, she's like, "Oh shit, this is bad. This is really bad."
So what does she do? She calls the cops and tells her boss. No, she doesn't do that at all. She goes to a video store.
Right, and she's kind of confused that like it's clear that she like got this address and went there, and she's like goes to the clerk and is like, I'm looking for David Rawlings or Raleigh, David Raleigh.
Yeah.
And the girl behind the counter at the video store is like, oh yeah, he's right back there. So she goes back into this back room, and turns out David Raleigh is like the manager of the video store, and also on the side is trying to become a private detective.
Right. So which one's he moonlighting as, the manager or the private detective?
Yeah, it seems like the video store is more legit than his private eye business at this point.
He does it as a hobby, Anthony, which you can trust that.
Yeah, and he's like, you can tell he's like super excited that he, has a client.
Well, this is his first case.
Yeah. So she kind of tells him the story of what happened, and she's like, I did a little bit of research on my own and found out that the man was an imposter. I saw pictures of what he was supposed to look like, and it's not the guy that I saw.
Yeah, Jameson's a real guy, but that guy is not Jameson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can tell she's not necessarily that confident that Raleigh is going to do a good job, but she's really just kind of broke, and this is bargain basement private eye right here.
Right. So yeah, she's kind of at her wit's end, and he starts cracking up and making trying to build some rapport with her. But she's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. This guy's the worst. He thinks he's like a private detective out of a Gumshoe movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she kind of sets him loose to do the job and leaves. And
even tells him, like, he's like, hey, I won't disappoint you. And she's like, even with this, I don't think you possibly could disappoint me.
Right. Yeah. Then David gets to work after she leaves, and the girl from behind the counter comes back to the back room and is like kind of talking to him, bugging him while he's trying to start his investigation.
Mm-hmm. He's building his own little fingerprinting box.
Yeah, and the way he does the fingerprints is so complicated. I don't know if that was how they did it back then, or if this is just some sort of amateur thing.
Got to be an amateur thing, because maybe he can't afford that little powder and the little makeup brush with it.
Yeah, because it's like it's like some kind of vapor or something, right? Some kind of gas that he puts.
It's super glue vapor.
Right. So he like finds some prints. So he's like feeling like he's making some accomplishments. And then the next morning he just comes to visit Quarles, and he's got a mug shot. He's like, is this the guy?
Well, he actually, after he does the fingerprinting, he goes through his computer, because they, in the early 90s, they apparently had a fingerprint clearinghouse system network.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And he literally puts a filter on it for a male ages 35 to 65 and Caucasian.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I lived at that point. That didn't happen.
No, definitely not.
That's the stuff we wished happened at that time. Now it probably not very well could.
Yeah, we're getting there. I feel like there's still a lot of issues with like databases not being connected nationwide and stuff, but
probably a lot of ethics issues as well. Who knows? But.
Yeah. So he goes to talk to Quarles, and he's got a mugshot, and she's like, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy who said he was Jameson. And he's like, okay, his real name is Dr. Winston Berber, and he's on record. The reason he's got his prints in the system is that he's previously been arrested for stealing computer parts. Yeah, and so Quarles is like, okay, I'm impressed. I did not expect progress this quickly from you. That's a good job. And he's like,
actual
all right.
Positive progress.
Yeah, and she's like, well, do you know where he is? And he's like, no, I wanted to make sure this was the guy first, but now that I know it is, I'm going to start searching, and I'll track him down.
But he's like moved around a bunch as well.
So then we cut to elsewhere where Berber is proudly looking at his collection of rare manuscripts, and he's got this kind of weird warehouse lair place, and he's got manuscripts in these like glass cases.
Right, one of the Werewolf of Paris, one of the Mummy apparently, and now he has the Frankenstein, and soon he will have an original first edition Dracula, like he's collecting baseball cards.
Yeah.
Or Pokemon cards. How do you feel?
Right. And so then it's just like a couple of weeks go by, and Quarles comes back to the video store. She's kind of losing patience. You know, we had that first day, big progress, and now she's not heard from Raleigh in a while.
And we also get just this hilarious customer that's basically asking for a bunch of movies that came out around 1997, as well as several full moon features, such as Head of the Family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a comedy bit where Quarles is kind of like yelling at Raleigh, and also he's being interrupted by this customer, and it's kind of back and forth. And Raleigh's like, "Yeah, sorry, I've been sidetracked. The computer went down here," and she's like, "Oh, so you can't do any more research?" And he's like, "No, not my private eye computer. The computer here at the store. So we're having trouble like looking up people's account info and stuff. So
yeah, we have to do check-ins, check-out via index cards, which God, that would be miserable."
Yeah. And he's like, "As soon as I get that fixed, then I'll get back to your case." And she's like,
also,
"No."
Should we explain what a video store is? Like, I feel like, you know, a lot of people know, but also a lot of people are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, and this is like, you know, I mean, I think probably people are familiar with like Blockbuster still at this point, but this is like a mom and pop little video store, which, you know, back in the day, you know, Blockbuster would have all your, you know, fancy new releases, but you'd have these weird little video stores just run by, you know, some guy or some family, and they would usually have a very much more eclectic collection of stuff.
Right. Stuff that they and their family liked, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then also the sketchy porn in the back.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so in this case, you know, she fires him because clearly he's more focused on his video store job than his private eye job.
Yeah.
But then it works out because back at the library, Berber just shows up again because he wants to check out the rare Dracula manuscript that they also happen to have.
Yeah, like an idiot, he uses the same trick twice.
Yeah. And, like, Quarles knows, you know, she knows what's up, but, like, what can she do? So she is kind of panicking, and then she starts being like, jail. Jail.
Says words at him.
Yeah. She's like, you're gonna go to jail for what you've done. And you got to bring the Shelley manuscript back right away, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Right, and I like how he's like, I have a mental condition, and my blood sugar's low, and I just don't, you know, feel like it, pretty much.
Yeah. And she's holding like a pair of scissors to kind of like keep him in place, right. And then she like calls David and tells him.
Instead of calling the cops who would show up and beat this man with an inch of his life, she calls David Raleigh.
Mm-hmm. And he's completely useless, and before she can get it all out to him, Berber pulls out a cattle prod and electrocutes her. And so then he's able to just easily steal the Dracula manuscript.
And her.
Yeah, he just throws her on like the carts in the library where they're like returning books. He just throws her on one of those and rolls her out.
Yeah, and he just needs her to be his human sacrifice now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she wakes up, like, she's tied up in the lab, and she's kind of, like, insulting him and, like, arguing with him the whole time.
Keeps calling him a pervert, which, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say this is necessarily anything perverted exactly.
And, yeah, like you said, he's like, I need you for the sacrifice for this big project I'm working on. I assume you're not a virgin. That would technically be better, but I can fudge the numbers a little bit and make it work okay.
Okay, here's a question I need to ask. Like, scientifically, what does virginity have to do with anything?
Yeah, it's just such like a trope with like, you know, these kind of movies. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing like when we did Monster Squad, you know, and it was like the older sister was reading it and then it didn't work because it turned out she wasn't actually a virgin.
Yeah, it's just like what component of this has to do with anything? Like, don't get me wrong. If we're talking about like Vladislav from What We Do in the Shadows, that makes sense, right? That's more of a hygiene issue. But also, does it really matter?
Yeah, and, you know, in most cases when we run into this, it's like a virgin sacrifice because it's, you know, it's...
Purity and all that.
It's purity, and it has to do with, like, magic and, like, religious rituals and stuff. But he's, like, doing science.
Right.
So, like you said, scientifically, what does virginity have anything to do with this?
Yeah.
But I guess maybe it's, like, hybrid science magic or something, and it matters in some way.
Yeah. Well, what's his special goal? What's his creation called? Oh, it's called the archetype inducer. Okay.
So what that will do is bring various fictional archetypes to life. And so that's why he's collected these 4 monster manuscripts so that he can create an army of monsters that he can use to take over the world.
But like, okay, so calling it an archetype inducer means that it's the archetype, but not specifically the character. But it seems like his thing brings the specific characters to life.
Yeah.
So is it a character inducer or an archetype inducer? Because we will see that it does induce archetypes.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah.
In the fucking weirdest way ever. But okay. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I'm trying to analyze the logic of this movie. It's from Full Moon Entertainment. So.
And so the whole time that he's working, like, you know, Quarles is just, like, mocking his plans. Meanwhile, somehow Raleigh has found the lab. I don't know how.
He just finds it.
Yeah. And so he manages to, like, sneak in and comes up behind Berber.
But can we talk about, real quick, one of the funniest fucking bits to me?
Okay.
Like while she's mocking Berber, like, she mocks she says that she's smarter than he is. So they get into a kind of a little smart-off competition, right? And he's like, I was so smart, I didn't even have to go to high school. I had tutors. It's like, I think if you had tutors, maybe you weren't that smart. Or maybe your parents paid too much money. I don't know. I chose to interpret it one way.
Yeah.
It could be interpreted multiple.
Right. But he's not so smart that he completely misses the fact that Raleigh sneaks up behind him. And Raleigh knocks him out, and then immediately, frees Quarles, and they rescue all of the manuscripts and escape the lab, jump in Raleigh's car, and speed off.
Okay, well that was a quick movie. No, it's not over yet.
Yeah, so it turns out that the machine is still running, and all of a sudden there's like 4 doors that open up, and out step little people versions of Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and a mummy. And
of course, as we mentioned before, Phil Fondacaro as Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the rest are probably stunt people, or they're all heavily made up, and like we said, never really speak.
Right, except and Dracula's like, hey, what's going on here? Why do we exist in this place now?
Yeah. And then we also get a little scene with Raleigh and Quarles driving back to the library, and Raleigh asks her out, and she's like, no, I'm way too good for you.
Right. She's like, I'm smarter than you, I'm older than you. Which she has a complex here, man, about being smarter than other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's got high self-esteem for sure.
Right. And of course, Raleigh's like, okay, I mean, maybe you're not into guys, maybe, or did you have a boyfriend? And she's like, well, I did have a boyfriend. But it turned out his favorite author was Ayn Rand, and that was it after that. And I'm like, amen, sister.
Yeah.
Good job.
I definitely appreciated that.
Right.
And then, back at the lab, like you said, Dracula's like, what is going on? And Berber kind of tries to explain the whole situation, that his archetype inducer and all that.
Yeah. And Dracula kind of gives the other monsters like a pep talk.
Yeah, he calls them his brothers in darkness.
Yeah. That's nice. You like to see some monster solidarity.
Mm-hmm. And then Dracula's like, I seem to remember being bigger before, though. What's going on? And Berber's like, yeah, the human sacrifice got away, so I guess there wasn't enough juice to make you your normal size.
Yeah. Which that's playing around it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of a clever concept. I mean, it's a dumb concept, but it's like a smart dumb concept.
Right.
And Verver's like, we can fix this. I'll work on the machine. I just need you to bring the human sacrifice back. It's got to be the same girl because I've already set up everything with her information. So
remember, she's blonde, of a certain height, and is a librarian. Mm-hmm. Which we didn't mention that Christina was also blonde and basically the same height as Quarles.
Yeah.
Okay, and also a librarian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Verver takes the monsters to the library, and while that's going on, again Christina hits on Quarles, and it's awkward again. Mm-hmm. And then we get a really weird scene.
Oh yeah, are we talking about the Jane Eyre fondling?
Yes.
Okay, Christina's a hypocrite. Okay, first off, by like telling Quarles not to let anybody touch these books, because what she does to this book should land her in jail. She is literally a bibliophile.
Yeah. Yeah, she sneaks upstairs and like you said, she picks out Jane Eyre from its metal box, and
no gloves, no mask.
Yep, and just like opens up her shirt and is just like rubbing the manuscript all over her chest, and just kind of like moaning, like she is having
She also puts it between her legs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's having a sexual encounter with the Jane Eyre manuscript.
Why not, right? Weirder things have happened.
Yeah. But then she hears some loud noises and is like, she thinks she's going to be caught, so she's got to go investigate. And she bumps into the 4 monsters who assume that she is Quarles and capture her.
Right. And as they take her immediately back to the lab, what's the first thing they do, Anthony? They strip her naked.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got to see some of that TNA.
Yeah, and Berber's like, this is the wrong girl. And like the monsters are still working on getting her undressed. Like they're just still hard at, and he's like, no, this isn't going to work.
Right, but Dracula's like, hey, we got it. She's a blonde. You're what? You're under 35, right? She's like, I'm 33. And it's like, maybe not. Who knows? But, he's like, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah, and Dracula's like, she might even be a virgin, unlike the first one. And she's like, well, define virgin.
Right.
And Dracula's like, something about someone who's had physical congress with a man. And she's like, oh, well,
yeah.
In that case, yeah, sure. Technically, I'm a virgin.
I mean, yeah. I mean, wouldn't she be?
Yeah.
Like, by that metric?
Yeah, I mean, so she's a gold star lesbian, I guess. And,
yeah. So here's my question, though. Does it still count if there was a marital aid involved?
Yeah, I mean,
she's been penetrated. Is that the act, or is it the release of the fluid? What? Damn it! We're gonna start a new podcast called "What's a Virgin."
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's the thing is like if you start really thinking about it, like virginity is nothing. It means nothing. Right, it makes yeah. So in this case, if an old timey doctor was to investigate to see if she was a virgin, he might see that she's not. But it's all nonsense. But yeah, Dracula's like, you got to do this. Like, we've got her. It's worth a shot. And Berber's like, I'm the master. You don't tell me what to do. And Dracula's like, I'm Dracula. Yes, I do tell you what to do.
Well, specifically, he says, all right, get her prepped, master. So snarkily. It's like, we know who wears the pants, Winston. I hate to tell you, it's not you, my man.
So the monsters all get back in their little chambers and shut the door, and Berber hits the button, which creates a portal that
atomizes, kind of.
Yeah, she kind of like swirls and gets sucked into the portal, but then she pops back out dressed as a Viking.
Right, or I thought she was a Valkyrie, but no wings.
Yeah,
but yeah, Viking-ish, horn helmet, braids, spear.
Yeah, obviously Berber doesn't want a Viking lady, so he hits the button again, and she gets sucked back into the portal. And the monsters step out, and nothing's changed. They have not grown at all.
Oh, well, it was worth a shot, right?
We'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah, because it's morning now, and we've got to go to sleep because Dracula.
Right. Elsewhere, we see Raleigh. He's, like, standing outside, and he's practicing having an argument with Quarles.
Right, he's specifically practicing getting his money.
Mm-hmm. She has refused to pay him since things didn't go well.
I feel like he did a job, though, you know?
Yeah, I mean, she got the manuscripts back.
Yeah, she's not dead. She's got the manuscripts back. She wasn't turned into an archetype, whatever that would be. I guess Sexy Librarian would probably have been hers.
Right.
Okay.
But so it turns out that he's outside of her apartment, and he goes to knock on the door, and the door is already open. So he just goes strolling in, and the lights are all off, but Dracula is there.
Right. He's like, don't turn on the lights because they're unnatural. And then he immediately steps out into the light.
Right.
Okay.
And he's like, where's the girl? And, Raleigh kind of like he refuses to tell him, basically. He kind of, acts snarky.
Yeah, he tries to defend himself with a candelabra, right?
Yeah. But then Dracula has the cattle prod from earlier and zaps Raleigh, and he...
I thought he just makes the candelabra disappear.
Oh, that's
right.
Yeah, it's not the cattle prod. He just uses like Dracula magic and
right.
Electricity comes out of his fingers and stuff. But yeah, David then pulls out. He's got a cross necklace, and that scares all the monsters away.
And hilariously, all right, I thought this was funny. He's like, "Oh, thank God I'm Catholic."
Right. And so then he runs out to his car to, try to go find Quarles and let her know what's going on.
Right. Unfortunately, it looks like he has two hitchhikers.
Mm-hmm. Dracula and the Wolfman are, like, hanging on the back of the car, basically.
Yeah.
So, they're like, of course, he's going to lead us right to the girl that we're looking for.
I mean, yeah, that goes without saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to Winston, who's trying to figure out how to make his monsters more breedable and submissive.
Right. Yeah, he's going to fine-tune that equation so that when they get bigger, he will be the master.
They're a little bit too mouthy for
Mm-hmm.
him right now.
And then Quarles arrives at work at the library and sees signs of struggle. Like, she can tell that something has happened. She goes towards the elevator and then sees down a hallway the mummy, who starts chasing her.
Right. It's like, I mean, it was adorable, man. I'd be like, are you okay, sir? Are you all right? Not, I'm terrified.
Yeah. So she starts hitting the elevator button to try to get away. And when the door opens, there's little Frankenstein, and he pops out. So she keeps trying to run. She manages to step on a wine glass, I think. Is that what it was? It was some kind of broken glass.
Yeah, it somehow breaks her heel or shoe and embeds itself in her foot. Basically, we get a John McClane here, is what happens. Because she does end up tying off the wound with, like, what was it, a scarf? Or
it's her shirt. She takes off her whole shirt, right. So then she's just...
Yeah, because she has to show her boobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she takes off her shirt and wraps it around her foot like John McClane.
Mm-hmm. And so eventually, this scene goes on a while. Like, this is another, like, we're padding the movie a little bit. Like, it's a lot of, like, her running, and then she'll, like, hide behind a bookshelf for a while and catch her breath, and we'll see some shots of the monsters kind of creeping around. But finally, they will bump into each other again, and they start chasing her again, and then she bumps into Raleigh, who has arrived.
And he makes a great joke. He's like, "Isn't this the kind of get up for a second date?"
Yeah, because she is wearing a bra. She's like in a little mini skirt and bra,
right.
And they're surrounded by the four monsters, and then Berber appears, and Dave tries to like take him hostage.
Yeah, Berber tries to pull the stun gun on him, but Raleigh switches it around.
Mm-hmm. But, of course, Raleigh doesn't take into consideration that the monsters don't really care about Berber that much.
Right. They're like, okay, go ahead. We can do what we need to do without him.
Yeah.
And then, okay, here's something stupid that Raleigh does, aside from just running in a third direction. He tries to pull the stun gun on Dracula. Hey, man, it was literally like 5 minutes ago. He just evaporated your candelabra.
Right.
And he does it again.
Mm-hmm. Raleigh tries to run away, and immediately, I think it's the mummy knocks him out. The mummy or so now we just cut back to the lab, and we've got the monsters tying Quarles up, and she's like just screaming, and Berber's like, "That's so distracting. Just please shut up. I need to focus on these equations."
Right. Winston's also like, hey, Raleigh, you really wouldn't have killed me, would you? Or no, he asked the monsters. They wouldn't have let Raleigh kill him.
Right.
And Dracula's like, yeah, as long as you're useful, you get to live.
Yeah. And then we see that, yeah, like you said, Raleigh is also there. He's been also restrained, and he starts trying to negotiate, and it's not working. Like,
No.
Everybody's kind of on their path now. They know what they want, and Raleigh's not going to convince anybody otherwise.
Right. And of course, Winston's over here like, all right, let's hurry up and do this thing. Let's go ahead and do it. Because we know he's got at least some plans to pull a fast one on Dracula.
Mm-hmm. And Dracula's like, but you've got everything's right this time, right? And
okay, this is the most competent villain I think we have ever seen. Because he's literally like, are there any unforeseen circumstances that will occur
yeah,
by just having her?
Mm-hmm.
And Winston's like, okay.
Yeah, he's like, well, she isn't a virgin, but I think I got that fine-tuned. And Dracula's like, well, we could go out and get a virgin then. And he's like, well, actually, another woman virgin would kind of cross the streams, basically. That wouldn't work. But if we had a man virgin, that might actually balance things out.
Right, but he has to be clothed, and that goes without saying.
Right. And they're like, hey, Raleigh, you wouldn't by any chance be a virgin? And he's like, no, me, I've totally had the sex many times.
And I love it. I love Dracula because he's like, when, where, and who with.
Yeah.
And this obviously puts Raleigh off. He's like, oh, shit.
Right.
There was a girl one time in the back of my car. She had a mole on her leg and pink panties. And everyone's like, oh, fuck. All right, he's a virgin. Load him up.
Yeah. And so they're kind of getting everything set up, and while that's going on, Coral starts talking to the monsters, and she's like, "You all are legends. You've lived many lifetimes in these great works of fiction, but if you're turned into real life people, you're gonna die eventually. Like you're less. Like you're choosing to become lesser versions of yourself instead of the larger than life archetypes that you've been before."
Right, and this would work on most movie villains, but not this Dracula, because he's like, yeah, but I'm alive now, so let's keep it that way.
Right. Then Berber is like, all right, time to get into the chambers, and he kind of just shoves them all in there. Yeah, and while that's going on, Raleigh manages to escape.
Well, Dracula's even like, hey, Berber, why do you want us in here so quick and so fast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's starting to be skeptical of Berber, and also, maybe Quarles is, swaying him a little bit. But yeah, David escapes and manages to get Quarles untied, and they're trying to just turn the machine off, but the portal opens again, and Miss Christine, the Viking lady, comes back out again.
Yeah.
And she grabs Berber and drags him into the portal.
Oh, did we say the reason why Berber was trying to rush everything was because literally just having the male virgin there would actually make them submissive to him?
Yeah.
That's his whole plan. Everyone's like, "Oh no, you betrayed us!
Yeah,
your sudden but inevitable betrayal."
Right.
Yes. Viking Christina pulls Berber into the archetype warp, and then Dracula's like, "Hey, hit the button again," and he gives a nice, lovely little speech about, "We'll always be with you in your nightmares."
Yeah. Because, I think seeing Christina is the thing that really, he's like, she's an archetype now and she's going to live on forever. We need to return to our realms and do the same.
Right.
And he tells Quarles that she's very wise for someone who hasn't even lived one lifetime. So, yeah, they all then voluntarily walk into the portal and it closes up. And then it's just like later on, we've got Dave back at work at the video store. Quarles comes by to visit him.
Hey, she actually pays up this time, though.
Mm-hmm. And she says, she was going to try to, go back to the lab and make sure that everything was destroyed. But it turns out Berber owed a bunch of money, and the creditors came and repoed all the equipment. So, problem solved.
But also, I've got you this lovely little book. It's called Venus in Furs, which immediately red flags flew up, and I'm like, wait, that's basically a porn book, an old porn book.
Mm-hmm.
I know about that book. What I did not know, did you know, Anthony, because we go that extra mile about apparently our pornography, did you know that this was part of a cycle of books?
Okay.
and it was literally written by a guy, and I thought she was like made up some bullshit. But Leopold von Sacher-Masoch, and it sounds like sucker must suck. So who knows? That it's a real person apparently. But the cycle is called The Legacy of Kain.
Ooh, interesting.
So for you fans of Legacy of Kain video games, apparently there's also some smut for you out there. But no, the books were there's about six novellas, I think, but they have to deal with stuff like obviously love, property, and this is me reading from the Wikipedia article if you're asking about it, and sex, death, that kind of stuff, and combinations thereof. And I'm guessing Venus and Furs was kind of love and property.
Right. And it's definitely become like, there's a Velvet Underground song with that name. It's like a kind of a term. And Dave is like, I've never read the book, but I definitely have seen the movie.
By Jess Franco.
Yep. And that's also true. Jess Franco, who, made some of our more smutty Frankenstein movies that we've watched here, also did an adaptation of this porn book. And like so he starts, and then he kind of goes on from there. And he's like, well, there was also this other version, and basically like goes on like an info dump about movies. And she's just kind of like nodding for a minute, and then she just like I think she like puts her finger to his lips, like hush, and then kisses him instead. So
right, so it's a romantic ending.
Yeah, I mean this is basically a rom-com, with like them not liking each other at first and then falling for each other as they go. But it also just happens to have little people monsters and a bunch of other weird nonsense.
Well done.
But yeah, like as far as full moon stuff goes, this feels pretty tame. It feels like there's a lot of full moon stuff that I would not recommend to a lot of people because it's gonna make them uncomfortable. But like, this not too edgy in terms of humor, very little nudity. And I mean, I think it's a fun little story. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to.
Yeah, I mean, it's both like there's a slight highbrow to the lowbrow humor.
Yeah.
So it's fun. Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of Easter eggs, which that's always fun to just go hunting for the Easter eggs, right?
Little references and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like the book, the werewolf book was, I don't know if that was a real book, but it was definitely talking about like the famous like beast of, what's it,
Gavadon?
Yeah.
Gavadon?
Yeah. Also the werewolf in this looked really weird. We didn't really mention.
Yeah, it's like a bat.
Yeah, like his nose was kind of skeletal or something. Yeah. It was a real strange. I mean, it looked good. Like, it wasn't like bad makeup job. It just was a really weird character design.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice for sure.
And our Frankenstein looked good. I thought they did a good job with him.
Yeah. I mean, it's the classic, Karloff.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I think this movie's definitely worth checking out if you have not seen it. Like we said, it's short. It's a quick, fun little, popcorn movie, basically.
Yeah. Or a movie that you would rent on a Friday night with your for the weekend with your family. If you have family movie nights. People still do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go down to your family video store and rent this from the horror
go down to your family video store and check this rent this one out.
Right.
Gosh. That weird freaking that whole period of time is just so wild. Looking back on it.
Yeah, like it is really strange to think about how easy it is now to watch a movie versus like, getting in the car, driving, down the road somewhere and like
having to have a membership that you possibly pay monthly or pay extra.
Yeah. And
if you don't have that membership.
And that you've got to like return it in a certain amount of time or you get a late fee
or you have to rewind it or you get a penalty fee for that.
Yep. Streaming, it's a whole different world.
It's a whole different world.
But there's something about, I mean, the convenience of streaming is one thing, but there is something that the ritual of all that made it feel like a more exciting thing, like Now you just kind of like casually are flipping through Netflix. You're like, oh, this looks fine, whatever. You turn it on, and but like when you're at the video store and you're picking up the boxes, and it's like, this is the only movie we're gonna have this whole weekend. So like, does this look,
Right.
is this cover grabbing my attention? And yeah, it was a very different situation.
Yeah, and you'd also see a lot of weird movies that you wouldn't nowadays, really, unless you were explicitly hunting for them.
Yeah. Yeah, just being able to walk around, it was a very different kind of browsing experience.
Yeah, and like you said, it was part of the ritual, right? All right, Anthony, we got anything else to say about
I
it?
think that covers this one.
Okay, well, in that case, where can they find us, Anthony?
Yeah, so you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast. We actually just got a blue sky, yesterday, so you can find us there. We're just going to be on all the socials until whatever happens and shakes out, and we settle on one. But now you can find us wherever. We're also over at YouTube. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com, and you can always find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast.
So, Anthony, I think next week we need to look for a new harvest. Maybe an Elizabeth harvest.
Yeah. So this is a movie that's a couple years old, but it just dropped on Shudder, and I had never heard of it. So I'm excited for us to check it out. It seems like it's a little Frankenstein, a little like high tech. It looks like there should be some fun stuff. So yeah, next week, Elizabeth Harvest. You can find it on Shudder and probably some other places as well. But yeah, we'll be doing that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek.